good evening, and welcome to Hearts and Hills. I'm your host, Shay Robinson. I want to say Happy New Year. I have not talked to you guys in over a month now. I missed you, and we're back in the studio. So thank you so much for just tuning in over the past couple of weeks. We're excited about this new year and what it brings. We know whenever we think about new, we think about refresh and being able to start over again. So it is such a blessing to be able to do that, and I'm excited to have one of my mentors, my friends, someone I look up to, Apostle Keith Moore, in the studio tonight. If you don't know the man, he is amazing. He's doing a great work, not only in the kingdom, but in the community. Hey, Apostle, how are you?
Well, God bless you, Shay, and bless you, my daughter, for allowing me to come on. We're certainly thankful to be here, and shalom, shalom.
And you know he is no stranger to the studio because he has hosted this show so many times. He knows what he's doing, so I love to give him the opportunity to come share. But I could have. I was trying to think about and pray. I always ask God, as the audience, you've been listening to me over years, and I've always said I pray about the people to come on and share and what we're going to talk about. And today I'm super excited to talk about, ways that we can overcome this violence and really attacking violence in a different way. If you live in the city of Montgomery, you know that over the past year, we have dealt with, well, not just in Montgomery, across the world, we have dealt with violence in so many different ways. As a matter of fact, before we came on the air, I was telling Apostle how I was watching the January 6th documentary that talked about the thing that happened at the White House, and it was amazing to me just about the nature of it, the thoughts, the perspective of people. And I want to talk about it tonight because I know Apostle Moore has his new position and he is doing a work in the community. So I want him to tell us about what he's doing, but I also have some hard questions to ask him. So he loves me now. He's going to love me a little bit less. Apostle, tell us about your position, your role, and what's happening in the city.
Well, awesome. Again, thank you, daughter, for allowing us to be on and allowing us to be a part of the broadcast tonight, the show tonight. Let me say good evening to our listening and viewing audience.
Yes.
So, what is and who is the Office of Violence Prevention?
Yes.
In the last year's budget session, our Mayor Stephen Reed, sought funds to fund a new office that he wanted to create to try to help curb the gun violence in our city. Mm-hmm. We know that we're not only in a national pandemic with COVID, mm-hmm. but we're in a national gun violence pandemic. It is happening all over the nation. America is the most armed nation, both legally and illegally, in the world.
Wow.
And so we're dealing with this pandemic, this epidemic of gun violence. Mm. And it's very, very difficult for us to deal with. But nevertheless, the Office of Violence Prevention was the brainchild of our Mayor Stephen Reed. It was submitted to the City Council. We originally looked at a 6-man team. We currently have 2 people on that team. We were approved for a 3-man team. Mm-hmm. So we have two individuals, myself and another local community organizer, Ms. Rotice Holyfield, who is a Montgomery native and has such a great impact on the city.
Yeah.
So our purpose as the Office of Violence Prevention, first of all, let me clarify, is we are not a law enforcement agency. We are not the Montgomery Police Department.
So we'll call you.
Yeah. Don't call me. I'm not 911. We'll give you our number later in the show. But the Office of Violence Prevention is developed to work strategically with gun violence and the reduction of gun violence in the Montgomery community. Mm-hmm. And so we're here to strengthen our relationship to the community, to build in a network of strategies and partnerships with the government, with neighborhoods, with faith-based organizations, mm-hmm. With different entities that affect a person's life, in order to put in place some data-driven strategies to cut down on gun violence.
I love data-driven.
Yes. We got to have what's working.
What's working.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of things. I watched the mayors. Again, we're in Montgomery, live in Montgomery, Alabama. I know that we stream across the world, but we're in Montgomery, Alabama, and Mayor Stephen Reed had his address last night, mm-hmm. and he talked about a lot of things. And one of the things that he said, what I thought was really interesting, is he talked about that, this city, he wants everybody to feel safe, and we don't feel safe right now. But one of the things, as he was talking, because, I was thinking to myself, yeah, we want to feel safe, but increasing bond and bail rates, things
Mhm.
like that, increasing time, all those things may not be deterrents to really violence. And he said we cannot arrest our way out of violence.
Yes.
I love that thought. So if we can't arrest our way out of violence, how do we attack violence that's happening? What do we do as citizens, as believers? What do we do as a community to start moving in a direction where we're impacting what's happening in our city?
Well, what we have to do, and the thing that I'm working on strategically along with my office, is to build a cradle to grave approach. And here's the problem. If an individual is prone to violence, grows up in a culture of violence, sees violence as the answer to problem resolutions, then we've got big problems. As I say, Shay, and I've said it before, the heart of the matter is a matter of the heart. And so my goal and our goal is to help build a capacity in a community of compassion. See, if I really care about you, I'm not going to do you damage. And that's from a legislative perspective, from a municipal perspective, from a faith-based perspective. That's from a individual perspective in our local communities. It's going to take in the models that we're looking at it's going to take a group violence intervention approach. What does that mean? That means everybody must be a part of the solution. That means if a kid sees something in their local school and there's a gun being brought to school, they have a responsibility to speak up. That means a parent who's raising their child has a responsibility to parent that child. And where there are deficiencies in our families, in our faith, in our institutions, wherever those deficiencies are, we've got to build capacity and individuals and organizations that can begin to work in those problem areas so that we can curb the issue. And here's one of my main issues that I believe is affecting the issue of not being able to resolve conflict.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Conflict resolution is a major factor in the crime in our municipalities, in our local cities. We like to say it's drugs. We like to say it's prostitution. We like to say it's trafficking. All those things are factors.
Yes.
Homelessness, those are all factors.
Right.
So we'll be working with other agencies to try to make sure we're operating at our maximum capacity to solve those issues. But there is one issue that can only be resolved by a change in the hearts of men. And that's how I respond to conflict.
So you said, I'm typing as you go because you said like so many things, but one of the things that I really want to talk about that you just stated was capacity. You talk about capacity. Have we, and when I say we, I'm talking about the city, I'm talking about the people. Have we failed because of the lack of capacity in our communities? Are we not supporting these initiatives that's happening across the city to really impact what is happening on our streets?
Okay, have we failed? No, we have not failed.
Okay.
We are going to progressively be working toward a brighter day and better solutions.
Right.
One of the things that I hope to build is that collaborative effort. See, if you're working and you're affecting 5 families, and I have services over here that can boost your capacity to affect 15 families, why don't we partner? Why don't we partner and provide greater services? I'll give you an example. In one of the early shootings that I was on the scene for the homicides, we're up to 4 homicides now in the city of Montgomery. And we're in what, the 13th day of the year.
Yeah.
So the trend is already there. On New Year's Day, we had 2 homicides in our city. And one of the things that being on the scene of those homicides created for me as OBP is the need and the understanding that there are programs out there. The Helping Families Initiative that's in the DA's office with Daryl Bailey. We think that office is just here to prosecute criminals, but there are other social constructs and social institutions that are there to help families. What do you do with a child who just witnessed their dad or their mom being murdered? What happens to that child's psyche when they all of a sudden go from a bright, vibrant kid who's now acting out in school, who's now a behavior problem in school? No, they're not bad. They're hurting. And so we have to build the capacity and build the institutions and communicate in such a way that we can get services in a more direct and yet varied way to make sure we're taking care of the problems that happen in the community that are tied to the gun violence.
So in essence, you're talking about you as your area. You want to connect with all these individual places so that we can have more of a centralized place, and not that we just got to go to you, but you understand that there are services out there. I completely agree. I think sometimes um, our social work is very much like the church, in
Yes.
that we become so segmented
Mhm.
and fragmented that we don't know how to work together as a group. And I really appreciate you doing this. Now, let's go back to when you talk about the heart,
Mm.
because
Jesus.
we know the Bible says that the heart is what?
It's evil.
It's
corrupt.
evil, right?
Oh.
It's corrupt.
Yes.
So how do you change? Well, and not just, I know it can't be all you. So
Yes.
when I say you, I'm not just talking about him. I'm referring to everybody in this community. How do we start impacting the heart? I know we can say at home, right? I know we can say at home. I know we can say in the schools, which we really shouldn't say. But how do we as a community start impacting the heart when we're scared?
Well, the thing is that, and here's something that I said in a recent broadcast: we won't care until we care. We won't take care of people until we have a true concern for others. Because here's what most of us do as citizens: we only react when it affects us.
Right.
We have a code in our community, in the African American community. We don't snitch, but we will skip over 20 incidents of violence and not snitch until our child's affected. Yeah. Then we go and we do a press conference that says, I know somebody out there knows what's going on. Please call us and tell us what happened. Well, here's the reality. We can't sow to the wind and not expect the whirlwind. Oh, wow. Yeah. Come on. We can't sow to the wind and not expect the whirlwind. We've got to understand that here's a principle, that right is right if nobody's doing it, and wrong is wrong if everybody's doing it. It's still a moral, we have to develop in our hearts a moral compass that says that, listen, I may not believe in your Jesus. I may not believe in your Buddha. I may not believe in your Jah. We may be of different faiths, but do our faiths and do our institutions, do our centers of morality, being our families and our schools, all of them have to work together. We've got to end the infighting. You know, the schools are there to educate, but they're not there to parent.
No, they're not.
And parents have got to, that's part of the issue. They've got to realize that we're fighting discipline issues in our classrooms from bad actors who come when they're challenged. The parents show up and they're worse actors. We've got to correct that. We've got to correct our heart toward one another. And so it's going to take a group effort. It's going to take parents, educators, faith-based leaders, civil servants, and public. It's going to take all of us, because the reality of it is it affects all of us.
So I do want to ask you this question. It's going to be controversial, but first I want to say, if you have a question for Apostle Keith Moore, the number is 334-318-6375. I'm going to repeat it one more time. The number is 334-318-6375. You can call in and ask any question that you like. Thank you again. If you're just tuning in, we have Apostle Keith Moore. He's here sharing. He's from the Office of Violence Prevention, which is an initiative of Mayor Stephen Reed in the city of Montgomery, Alabama. He's here sharing his vision and his thought, his perspective, and the approaches that the office will take to try to move things forward to create a better environment for us all. So my controversial question is, I'm putting you on the spot, so we talk about the heart, and we know a lot of times what flows out of our mouth, out of our actions, are guided and directed by our heart.
Yes.
And I say that because I was watching this video early today. This girl got shot 17 times because she was in a relationship with a guy who was in a relationship with another girl, and the girl, came and shot. She's alive and she's doing okay, but it was her heart. Her heart was broken. The reason why she got there, right? So tell me this: are we really? let me ask this in the right question.
Fix it, daughter. Fix it.
Is music the problem? Is TV the problem? Are video games the problem? The reason why we're seeing so much violence being enacted in our youth now?
Those are factors, but not the problem.
Okay.
I believe that the core of the problem is our hearts and our interpersonal relationships. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned earlier, conflict resolution is major. And what we're finding out in understanding violence is that, upwards of 75, 80% of crimes that are committed by people who know each other. Mm-hmm. So let me dispel a myth. We talk about black on black crime.
Right.
But there's white on white crime.
It is.
There's Asian on Asian crime.
It is.
There's European on European crime. In other words, crime is committed within community.
Right.
We know one another.
It's just been politicized.
It's been politicized to just be black on black crime because statistically that's a moneymaker.
It is.
So here's the reality. Crime happens in every neighborhood. The nature of it may be different. The quantity of it may be different. But it happens because in every neighborhood there's the human heart. And so when we have the relationship issues and this person's being unfaithful, they're cheating, there's other things, there's abuses, there's all those things. Those are matters of the heart. And those are so difficult to resolve. I was speaking to one citizen and I said, we say to our law enforcement, we say to our civil service, our mayor, what are you going to do? Here's the question. What are you going to do? Because we know these children. They're our children. Listen, they're taking our guns away from the house. Mm-hmm. We're watching their social media page. We know that little Johnny was just on Facebook with his ARs in the air and his rack up to his ear. We know that. We see that as parents.
When he say rack, he's referring to money, just in case.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I'm not as hip either, but I have a son that keeps me in there.
Yeah, his rack, his bands of money up to his ear. Yeah. Because watch this. What's in the heart is a desire. Watch this, and here's what we got to be careful of, because every person, and please hear me, every person that commits a criminal act is not necessarily a criminal.
That's true. I believe that.
Because there are things in the heart where there are voids. The feeling of significance, the feeling of acceptance.
But I think this all being fed by media. I think it's all fed, and this is why I say it, because we have to learn from something, right?
Sure.
So if we're empty and we have voids, but we're playing Fortnite or we're playing all these Grand Theft Auto, mm-hmm. And again, let me say this. I've played all those games.
Yes.
And I'm not violent.
I never have. I can't.
I have.
Now, see, you make a point, and let me point this out. Those things are certainly, again, factors, and they can. I read one study in psychology that talked about the number of violent incidents that you see in the gaming world.
Right.
Desensitizes the player to taking life. We understand that because you see repeated acts of violence. So we understand the psychological and the sociological effect that it has on an individual when they continually commit acts of crime or acts of violence in a virtual world. As a matter of fact, some of our youth, watch this, have begun to refer to each other and call each other by those names within the games.
Yeah.
So we understand that as a factor. But the reality of it is, and I say this even of social media, because you see most of our beefs, most of our incidents have a social media link.
Yes.
It's connected to what we're doing on social media.
Yes.
And I remember a few years ago, I was still in the military. I was talking with another believer, mm-hmm. and she said, this social media stuff, Facebook is evil. I think it's of the devil, and I'm never going to touch social media. I said, hold on, listen, let me try to reorient your perspective. Facebook isn't evil. Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, all that stuff, it's inanimate. It's the heart of the user.
Yeah.
It's the keyboard courage. It's the things that we do. It's not evil. It's only as evil as the heart of the user.
So in essence, what you're saying, that music, rap music, or because we keep referring, let me say this, if we're not careful, media and marketing is 80% ran by one specific race. I'm gonna give you a little data because I've researched this. Okay, so let me clarify that. So a lot of stuff that you're fed is coming from one perspective. So rap music is not the only music that has violence in it. There are a lot of different. So I'm gonna correct myself and say music because I just did specify, but I'm gonna correct myself. So music and movies and gaming.
Yes.
What you're saying and what I hear you saying is the boys in this is where the parenting or us as a community have to step up with it when we see these kids that are missing or that we know have these gaps of love and connection, that we need to start feeding their hearts with something else, because if they're being fed by all these other things, then it desensitizes them to the impact and the effect of violence.
A simple conversation
makes a
with a child can make a world of difference. Now, son, you do understand that little enemy that keeps getting up on that screen is not in the. We got to begin to talk with them at early ages to help them understand the difference between the gaming world and reality.
I do.
You know, it's a big difference. We got to have that conversation with our children.
Now, LaSheila Garrett, hey, LaSheila, how are you? On Facebook, she said, at some point, parents must abdicate their responsibility to parents. Their kids live in this virtual world so long until reality becomes their falsehood. Woo, that was good.
And that's it exactly, because it's a thing where, especially from a parenting perspective now, and we're not putting full blame on parents. That we have to take on, in resolving gun violence and crime, a village mentality. It's going to take all of us, because it may be that, whereas a parent may be deficient, that the pastor, the deacon, the civil servant may have enough in them to grab the attention of that child and show them a better way. Okay, but we do know that the home is the first institution of learning. It is and if we want to go kingdom now, if we want to go to the biblical perspective, the word of God says, God told Israel, you teach them in the morning, you teach them my laws at noontime, you teach them in the evening, you teach them when the sun goes down. You are the first priest, pastor, apostle, servant of your children. You are the parents are. So before they get to the kindergarten teacher, you've had them for 5 to 6 years.
Wow.
What were you doing with those formative years? With my background in psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs says, watch this, that people are going to find a way to meet their needs. And listen, whether it's physical, just survival, or whether it's all the way to self-actualization, making them become the best individual they can come, and them feeling purpose in life. Listen, if I feel purposeful with my crew, and I haven't understood that my purpose can be found in Christ or in my family or in something that is positive and productive, then my soul's going to find purpose.
And I'll link to whatever that purpose is.
Whatever gives me significance.
Yes, whatever that purpose is, because we all want to be seen. And a lot of times we're just not seeing each other. Now, you mentioned something really important, conflict resolution. Let's talk about it, because I think I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think 90% of the cases could be avoided if we understood conflict resolution. Explain to the audience what conflict resolution is, just in case they don't know.
Okay, conflict resolution is a skilled manner in which individuals and groups or institutions find ways to resolve the differences. And the resolution of that difference should be, as much as it can, be a win-win. We should be able to walk away from situations with both parties feeling intact and having accomplished.
Like they've been heard.
Yeah, they've been heard. Listen. If we come to interpersonal relationships, we know that as one wise woman told me when I was growing up, and she's an older mother in our community, she said, tongue and cheek fall out. Listen, can I be for real for a second? Can I be totally wrong? Some days I don't like myself.
Okay.
So it's days when I don't like my wife, when I don't like my children, when I don't like, but do I have a skill enough in my life and a heart enough to say, I'm not going to do you damage because I don't like you? Can we agree to disagree? Or is my pride such that I will take your life to retain my pride?
So is it because pride is the reason why we can't really get to conflict resolution, or is it just that we don't know that there's a better way to conflict resolution?
It could be both. Pride is one of the most major things. Pride is so, it's major for me to maintain how I look to my boys, to maintain how I look in front of my girls, to maintain that I'm not going to allow you to punk me or bully me or make me feel like I'm less than you are. And that human virtue, which can be a double-edged sword of pride. Yes. Oh my God. Ooh, in one way, it will cause you to celebrate. In another way, it can cause you to kill.
And you know,
it's dangerous.
That's super dangerous. And now that you say it, I know we all, and this is just a moment of retrospect. That's the word I was looking for. This is a moment for you to think about, just within yourself. If you could go to this last year, this last month, this last day, in ways in which someone has said or done something to you to make you feel like, oh, I think they got the best of me. Mm-hmm. And that is, I think, that starts the trigger of, okay, look, I'm about to retaliate. Because we do this in everyday life. Now, some of us may not be violent in it.
Yes.
Okay, so let me give you an example. Somebody says something to you and you go off on them when you really didn't need to go off.
Wasn't even necessary.
It wasn't necessary. The conversation wasn't important. You could have just kept going. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to stop what you were doing.
As a matter of fact, you miscommunicated. They didn't even mean what you thought they meant.
As a matter of fact, they weren't even talking to you. and if we really think about it, they already had their own issues. It had absolutely nothing to do with you. But because your pride said, I can't let them see that they got the best of me.
Yes. And that becomes dangerous. And I believe innately, Romans 2, I'm going to go scripture for a minute.
Please.
But Romans 2 says that even when the Gentiles were not of Israel, they did those things which are right. Mm-hmm. What do I mean? Even when people don't have faith, there's still a breath of God in them. There's a conscience in them that can be a guide to right and wrong. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a moral compass. The problem is sometimes our compasses swing too far in the wrong direction.
And then we equate it to faith. Like we automatically say, well, I'm not a God person, or I'm not religious, or I'm not this, so this is how I handle it, or what come up, come out. Those kind of things that we give ourselves permission to respond and react in those ways that are not beneficial for yourself or for others.
No. Mm-hmm. But I believe that everyone has a moral compass in them by God's design. And so we have to work. We have to work to help people find that compass again, and say, what you may have been told is acceptable. Yeah. To smack your wife, because one of the things that I'm discovering in my research is that most gun violence is tied to another form of violence. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's all connected. Watch this. The husband and the wife are in the midst of a divorce. Mm-hmm. And the wife, because she's been abused, is going through another night of abuse, and she shoots her husband. Mm. We call it gun violence, but it's really an unresolved domestic issue.
It is.
The two kids are beefing in a neighborhood. We call it a social media beef. Okay, we're gonna take 5. Mm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We're gonna take 5. For those who don't know what take 5 is, we're gonna arrange and we're gonna bring our crew with us. And they're going to give us time to fight. We're going to fight for a solid 5 minutes to work out this conflict. Yeah. But what they don't realize is somebody else showed up to the scene that was armed.
Right.
So in my taking 5, I'm putting everybody's life in danger, because somebody, watch this, has steel courage. Mm. Because what I'm finding also is, wow, and we got to understand this, is that there's some scared people out there toting weapons.
It is.
And out of fear, they'll mess around and take your life.
Right.
Out of fear. Mm-hmm. They're not ready to talk through or avoid or back down and say, I'm just not going to show up. That pride factor. And it so drives and motivates people. Mm-hmm. And then watch this. Don't even begin to talk about the social media mob mentality.
Right.
Not everybody's got me on blast. That little Pookie pumped me down. Not everybody Then watch this. Everybody jumps on me and talks about how weak I am because
Yeah.
I was courageous enough and strong enough to say it's not worth one of our lives.
It's the comments.
It's the comments, baby. Oh my God, it's the comments.
It's the comments that get you. I tell you that
It
video,
is.
and people are recording things. So,
Sure.
so your embarrassment goes beyond just that incident. It is now living. It's a living, breathing thing online, and people are responding across the world because we all have an opinion.
We see it in bullying.
Yeah.
We see it in teen suicide.
Which
We
is
see it in
hard.
gender shaming.
Yeah.
We see it in all of those factors where people are at crossroads in their life
Mhm.
when they need emotional support and they get an artillery of comments from uncaring people
Yeah.
who push them over the edge. It's dangerous.
And so if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Hearts and Hills with Shay Robinson, Apostle Keith Moore, who is, I have to make sure I say the position right, who is the new office of, in the Office of Violence Prevention, which is a new initiative by Mayor Stephen Reed here in Montgomery, Alabama. We have been talking about, preventing violence in the city, and we've been breaking down some ideas and some thoughts about how we can impact what's happening in society. So let me ask you this question. When you hear the word violence, what comes to mind?
When I hear the word violence,
Mm-hmm.
and this is going to be tough for some people to receive, but I think of the victim,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes the victim isn't who you think it is. In other words, watch this. Most people who perpetrate crimes and commit acts of violence have been violated themselves. It's truly a victim who victimizes. As we say in slang, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And if we're going to solve the problem of violence, yes, we have to take care of the victim, but we've got to also take care of the person who perpetrated the crime, that family environment. We've got to ask the questions of what went wrong in their family. We've got to ask the questions of what coping skills have they been trained to. We've got to ask and give us those things because, see, watch this. Here's something that we have to consider, and legislatively, when we look at the Anaya Blanchard situation.
Yeah.
The young man had been out on bond several times. He was out on bond.
Yeah.
So what happens to a young man who commits an act of murder, and then we bond him out? What does he have to prevent him from committing another crime?
Mm-hmm.
I got one body, and that may just be the one that we know about. It could be that he has more bodies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's nothing to prevent him from taking life.
Yeah.
So legislatively, we see in this session of the legislature, we see our district attorney Darrell Bailey, who's trying to get the bond raised for murder from $150,000 to $1 million.
For this recent incident that happened in Montgomery, he was, not that he wasn't doing it before, but it's really become the forefront. In case you're wondering, over the weekend,
yes,
we had a shooting at Bama Lanes here in Montgomery, Alabama, and one person died. Several were injured.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
Yes. And it's so tough because we don't know all the factors around that situation. And I'm sure that through the court system, all factors will be involved, but all factors will be revealed.
Yeah.
But there are many people who are perpetrating crimes and they're being released right back to commit second, third, and fourth acts of violence. And that's dangerous.
That is dangerous, but how do we change that? Like, what do we do, or what do we put in place to help those people with dealing? Because like you said, we don't know the situation. It very well could be that, somebody was being jumped, and this is where they felt like this was their only response. It very well could be that they were the aggressor.
Yeah.
So we don't know, but how do... I think for me, there's a fine line between keeping people in prison and giving people bond to go out. And it's because we have seen the movies, and I can't think of the documentary that talks about the young man in New York who was in prison for a crime that he did not commit.
Khalil,
thank you.
He eventually committed suicide.
In prison because he could not get out.
Yes.
So that's an extreme case, and not to say there aren't other cases out there, but what do we do to impact this? Like, what do we do to impact those who have committed a crime, or to a thought to commit a crime, and we're supposed to offer them some way to get out of prison where they're not staying in that state. Meantime, until we get this trial together, what do we offer them?
I think that one of the hardest things that we're trying to balance as society is our care for people and our protection of the greater part of the people.
Right.
That's always a difficult balance. To care for a person who has broken the law,
right,
and yet prevent them from creating chaos within the greater part of society. I think that the prison reform system and the prison reform efforts are very necessary right now. That our prisons do improve. That we're not just imprisoning people for punitive actions and not rehabilitating them. Providing those educational opportunities and things like that of that nature that's going to help them one day, if they have committed some crime, that they can be released back to the greater part of society. They can come back and be productive citizens. So it's a tough balance because, everyone has their agenda. We've got to understand that. And we have to understand each movement's purpose. When we talk about those efforts that are out there to defund the police and all those things, these things have to be balanced socially so that we can, honor and protect the rights of individuals, yet protect the greater part of society. So it's a fine balance, and we're always trying to work through that as social constructs.
But isn't the agenda the problem?
Explain a little bit further.
So if we all have our own agenda,
sure.
If we all have our own agenda, isn't that really the problem? Like, we really should. So even with, violence that's happening now, and again, I want to be clear. We're not trying to take away from anybody's pain and hurt, what they're going through. We're not minimizing. We're not saying that it's not relevant and not important. We're just talking about ways that we can improve and we can better serve everybody involved in these situations. So I just want to make sure we're clear across the line. But I want to say this. So, for example, let's go to the young man who with the Blanchard situation. When he was bailed out the second time, I think it was 2 times before. If the agenda, because of the political agenda, no one is really setting or thinking about guidelines that are really impacting these people who are getting arrested and being bailed out, right? Because they all have their own way of thinking this is how it's done.
Sure.
Because if we all stepped away from our own agenda, we would see that counseling, right, should probably be the first thing that we offer anybody that is going to jail. Because as you stated, the basis of it all is the heart.
It is.
It's the brokenness that's happened at some point. And not that they should not pay for whatever they've done, but if we're going to let them back out in the streets, should we not be doing something to figure out what they're thinking?
Yeah. Is there any hope of change in that individual?
Yeah, right.
Now let me be clear. There is a place for long-term incarceration. There is a place. Because if you make a decision and you've made your mind up that you're not going to honor the greater morality of the greater part of society, then you've got to be dealt with. There are some people, and I learned this from the church world, there are some folk who have just decided they're not going to follow any authority in the earthly realm. It does not matter who they are. And that's why, listen, I think it's Romans 13 says that we have to honor all forms of leadership. God placed them, and sometimes he places people in civil and governmental leadership to even chastise the kingdom.
Yes.
So we got to understand we need it. We have to have that.
We fighting in the church and call police officers.
Listen, do you hear me? We have to have that.
Yeah.
But is there any hope of rehabilitation for an individual? It has to be we have to deal with the nature of the crime committed. We have to deal with the hope of rehabilitation, the previous life. We're trying to balance all of that. And I'm telling you, I don't envy those who have to sit in those seats, our magistrates and our judges who have to make those decisions. But watch this. When we look at some of the current legislation, we've got a debate going on now about the Second Amendment right to bear arms.
Yeah.
And taking away the permit, the license to carry. Well, that sounds like you're infringing upon my rights,
Right.
that I should be able to bear arms. Well, let's talk about time and dispensation.
Yeah.
When that law was written, it was written when we were bearing arms against a foreign nation, England. They were talking about in the context of being a militia,
Oh,
not in
wow.
the context of being a private citizen.
Okay.
There's a difference in a militia and a
He's dropping
private
some
citizen.
knowledge tonight. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
there's a difference in being a private citizen and an armed militia.
Okay.
Militia had its place when we were fighting England for the freedom of this nation. That's a different context than just saying everybody should be able to walk around with a gun freely.
And everybody's not able to walk around with a gun freely.
Do we know there have been thousands of gun permits who have been denied because they were not to carry weapons and they had either some mental defect or some criminal background or something that said we do not need to arm this person.
Right.
So we have to weed through that. Now watch this. Here's something that we got to understand in this discussion and in the context of this legislation on the no carry is what about the policing tool? Watch this. A lot of our young people now, and we've seen it in other major cities, we're seeing it now. They go out, they want to flash their guns.
Yep.
Okay? They want to show off their weapons. Legally, there is nothing the police department can do about your social media video with you flashing the AR-15 on screen. Nothing. We can know you have the weapon. You can threaten to hurt somebody with the weapon. Nothing can be done about it. Why? Because of the law. The law says that I infringe upon your rights if I don't give you the right to bear arms, no matter what you do with it. Watch this. Lawyers even say and have argued, how do you know it's a real gun? Now, wait a minute. How do you know it's a real gun? You know what? The law enforcement and the greater part of society can't take any action on that until it's fired, we see a bullet, and how many guys on screen? See, let me tell you something. The criminal mind is not an ignorant mind.
No, it's not.
It's very intelligent.
They are super smart.
We think, and I told my church this. I said, wait a minute. I said, I was pastoring in another city, which will remain nameless, and I told my church this. I said, listen, let me tell you something. Y'all talking about the boys on the corners and the boys on the street and how bad they are and da. I said, but let me think about this. Let me shed a little bit different light on you. Which one of us on this deacon board or trustee board could recruit 10 or 15 young men and say, come put your life, your freedom, and your safety in jeopardy to work for me, and I'm gonna help you make some money. That person is not just ignorant. They're a person of great influence.
Right.
So what we've got to do, they got to be charismatic. They got to know power. Yes. They got to know how to motivate the human heart.
Yes.
They're not just some ignorant bimbo out here, even when it comes to rap music. Man, our rappers are college graduates.
Yes.
These are not dumb people.
Yeah.
So you can't just blame it on ignorance. We've got to understand that component. When we talk about the law and those things, people know ways to get around the law.
Like Nino Brown back in the day, New Jack City, in case y'all wondered.
Oh, Lord, you went old school on us. You went old school on us.
But when you look at what Nino Brown was doing in that movie, I know it's a movie, but you think about the way he was thinking, the way he was approaching it, as smart as ever. So we got to find a way.
So watch, let me say this on this legislative issue about the no permit, the no license to carry.
Yeah.
That is a law enforcement tool. Watch this. Traffic stop. Guns found in the car. Okay, we pull the licenses. Is everyone here 18? Everyone's 18. Right now, watch this under the law. Does everyone have a pistol permit? No permits in the car. 4 individuals, AR-15s, 9 mils, 45s in the car. Now that officer, watch this, has a legal right to say, since there are no permits in the car, I can confiscate these weapons. Under the no carry law, they can't touch those weapons because they don't have to have a permit. So now watch this. If I get pulled over in Eastdale, or I get pulled over in Normandale, and I've got a weapon in my car, and I don't have a license to carry, then the police have probable cause to check that weapon. If this legislation passes, God bless you, 18-year-old. Go on about your business. I'm going to issue this speeding ticket. But you got 4 weapons in the car with no permits. You can carry it. Is that your gun? Yes, ma'am, it is. Okay.
So, but why would we want to do that? Why are legislators talking about this being a law?
Because there are issues that are popular for political capital. See, if I have a large population of voters who I'm fighting for my gun rights, and I'm being funded by major organizations with money,
and guns,
certain associations, yes, which shall remain nameless,
shall remain.
If I'm being funded by them, then all I've got to do is have my lobbyists and my legislators get the issues on the table, and then if we can affect those changes, then I can go on with whatever I want to do. But the adverse effect is going to happen among those who are already illegally carrying guns, because it takes away a policing tool.
It not only does it take away a policing tool, but it also, I think it will increase violence when it comes to policing, because once you start seeing guns in a car, and the people that have them know that you can't do anything about it, mm-hmm, then at that point you really do start fearing for your life. Like, they can pick up any one of these guns at any time. I mean, I'm
gonna take you to something even simpler. I'm gonna take you something because people will push boundaries. Yeah, they're gonna push the boundaries because they know you can't do anything about it now.
Because it's nothing worse than somebody who think they know the law
and think they know. Yes, but if they know, and this is getting much press, if they know they don't have to care, they don't have to get a permit anymore, it's gonna cause an increase.
It will.
I'll give you a simple one. And I'm gonna switch from our community and gun violence to even educational issues.
Okay.
A lot of the misbehavior in schools, and these are discussions I've been having for years. Mm-hmm. If an individual has, and let's talk about how legislation affects institutions.
All right.
No Child Left Behind.
Right.
Initiative of President Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Praise God. First African-American president. But the effect of that legislation is dangerous.
It's dangerous.
It's very dangerous, and here's why. Because if a child is under an IEP, mm-hmm, or a particular plan, we understand we're going to guarantee them an education. What happens if that child is a discipline issue or a bad actor? They're going to continue to be able to be allowed to be in school, because we can't legally put them out of school, but for 10 days in a whole school year. 10 days. So what respect do they have? They'll walk in and feel like they can slap a teacher, disrespect the administrator, because look, I got 9 days down. All I'm going to get is one more day. Then you can't put me out no more.
Yeah.
And so people who are bad actors will always know the limits of the law and push that threshold.
Yeah.
So you know, if a kid is doing this in school already, what's he going to do when he becomes 18? He can carry a gun. He's going to push that same limit. And so we've got to look at this thing again from a group perspective on gun.
And then does that impact school shootings? I mean, access for a 16-year-old that can drive to have a gun. I mean, I just think it's, call your legislature.
Yeah.
Your legislators, people, and make sure you voice your opinion on this, because we have to think sensibly when it comes to this. I am a believer that if you want to carry a gun, that you should have a license and you should know how to use that gun.
And I was about to say, training is even important.
Yeah.
You need to be trained.
Yes.
It is not Fortnite.
It is not.
It is not Rambo. It's
Nerf
not
guns.
It's not all this stuff that we see on TV. All this cool shooting they're doing. That stuff is real. Mm-hmm. You got to think about. And I've talked to military members and other men who had to take lives.
It's a lot.
It's a lot for the human soul to bear the taking of a life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is not this. You talk about bearing that in your soul. Oh, Jesus.
I mean, that's a lot. Now, I don't care what anybody say, and I know sometimes we're so tough, and again, that pride won't let us say, but I mean, just for me to even think about taking a life, it's just like, what in the world? Why would you even think that? But to think that you're taking away someone, that's, if we can just, I just love, the bottom line of this conversation has been the heart, that we have got to change our heart towards each other. And we got to have a heart towards those who are in need of us. Yes. Like, we can't see people hurting We can't see people broken. We can't see people lacking and not be able to step in. That is our service as humans, as believers, especially as believers. God said the poor will be with you always. Yes. In other words, you will always have an opportunity to go out and minister and help someone. So I think those are the things that we need to start focusing on. Now, we're coming, I know it hasn't seemed like an hour, Apostle, but we're almost at the end. We have about 10. I know we have about 9 minutes left. So I do want you to talk about, from your office, just share some opportunities and ways people can get involved and engaged in this conversation, and talk about your main, as you move forward, what is the purpose and what do you want to see achieved within your term there?
Well, actually, the overall goal again is the reduction of gun violence, and so we're going to continue to work with, all institutions that are concerned with the betterment of the lives in Montgomery, Alabama. Okay. So we're working with faith-based institutions. We're looking at partnerships, with government, and we're looking, to work in our schools, every institution that can affect a person's life. And so when we talk about this group violence intervention or group violence interruption, is how do we interrupt the cycle? And so everything that we're going to be focused on, and what I'm trying to do is develop a comprehensive cradle-to-grave approach. How do we affect those from 1 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30? Every person, every issue in those areas. How do we affect the kid that graduates from school and cannot read? We still got to rescue them. We can't allow them to turn to a life of crime. We got to rescue them because our systems may have allowed them to slip through. And now they've had this change of life and they don't want to be in a life of crime. How do we affect change for them? And they're great programs, and I won't begin to name programs, but there are great programs out there that can help kids who are just coming to kindergarten, K through 5, that can minister to those kids and help meet their needs, not just spiritually, but meet their physical needs, meet their emotional needs. Talk about, give them the resiliency training to talk about conflict resolution. How do we build into them the virtues that may be void in their community? How do we give them safe ways of changing? One of the things I said,
I love that.
How do we give them a safe way of changing? Because you got to understand there is a lot of pressure on an individual who lives in a certain situation or culture, and everybody is weighing down on them to do a certain thing that they may not have in their heart to do. Their heart may not be hard within them, but their heart may have to be hardened to survive where they have to live. And so we've got to understand the social pressures and build the social constructs that can give people a safe way to just live. And so our office is going to be working with other institutions, other entities to help build that. And again, I applaud my mayor, Stephen Reed, for giving, and the city council of Montgomery for giving us the initiative and the funding to do this. If you need to contact our office, you can email us at violenceprevention@montgomeryal.gov. Violenceprevention@montgomeryal.gov. So our office is new. I mean, this is a total. And let me say this: it's going to take time, Montgomery. We have to ask ourselves, how long did it take us to descend to this point?
A long time.
And how long will it take us to ascend from this point? Listen, this won't be magic. It won't be overnight. You're going to hear, more than likely, of other things that happen, but we're trying to get ahead of it. It's going to require patience and involvement from our community, because understand, we have a 2-man office. Let me say that. 2. Uno, dos.
So we need you to get involved.
We need you
to participate, be a part of this, and support the efforts that are happening. He can't do it by himself.
No.
Neither he or Rotias can do it by themselves. They need your assistance. They need your support. If you know of programming, if you know of different opportunities that we could provide, then I want you to reach out to him again. What's the email address?
violenceprevention@montgomeryal.gov.
make sure you reach out, let them know that you have a service, that you have some time, you have a mentoring program, you have
Yes.
some money that you want to give, whatever it is, reach out and let them know so that they can really get this list together and we can impact one person at a time. If we just change one, we might save one, at least one life. You
Yes.
never know. Now again, I've been calling him Apostle Moore all night. So that means that he always ministering the word. So we can't let you leave without sharing this in the new year. I'm going to say something real quick, then I'm going to give it to you so you can
Yes.
share some encouraging words for the people as they move forward. I want to thank you again for everything that you do for Hearts and Hills. Make sure you tune in next week. We'll be here. We have some great people that are coming to share over the next couple of weeks. And I just want to encourage each and one of you. One of the things that I've really been, that Apostle Moore mentioned tonight, and one things that I've been really focusing on is capacity. I really want you to start thinking about your capacity, what you can do, what you can't do, what you can offer, what you can't offer. Where can you grow? Where have you stopped growing? I want you to start thinking about your capacity in this new year, because that's going to be important in how, not only how you treat others, but how you treat yourself.
Amen.
And once you start treating yourself with the respect and the love that you need, you can respect and love everybody else.
Absolutely.
That's my word for the night. Apostle Moore, take it away.
Listen, I believe that the Lord is pushing us out of the church and back to kingdom.
Amen.
I believe this whole pandemic situation was to push us, to remind us, first of all, to maintain our faith in God and to touch lives wherever we go. The thing that I often say is ministry is where your feet go. And so we need to reestablish ministry in our homes. We need to reestablish ministry in our communities. The church has become so closed in and so fragmented until we've forgotten there are souls out there. There are lives out there to be changed. And so my word to us for 2022 is, let's be about kingdom. God is about to shift and start to place people in places of influence so that we can bring about and bear out the scripture, thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. So please allow us, let's work together to step outside those walls and each one reach one.
I'm smiling over here like a little kid because he's already doing the work. He's been doing it for a long time. If you know him, make sure you follow him on social media and get involved and get engaged. This year is all about what you can do, what you can bring to the table, and how you can be an impact. We have allowed other people to feed into us so much. Why don't we give some of it back?
Yes.
I was talking to someone last night, and she was having an issue. And I was telling her, God didn't give you all this stuff so people can keep feeding it to you. At some point, he's going to expect a withdrawal. It's just like your money in the bank. You don't keep putting the money in the bank without ever taking it out. Amen. So God is ready to take out some things from your life. Thank you, Apostle Moore, again for coming and sharing tonight. I had about 15 more questions.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No. These are great conversations, and we're going to continue to have them because we have to impact this world. This is not just a city discussion. This is a state, a nation, a world discussion, because violence is too prevalent, and we have to make a change. We have to impact, because all we're doing is creating a cycle.
That's right.
And the more that we allow this cycle, it's just like a rock. The more it goes down the hill, the bigger it gets, the greater the slide and the greater the impact. So we want to stop it now. Again, as we get ready to leave, provide your contact information one more time.
Again, you can email us at violenceprevention@montgomeryal.gov. And we do have an office number if you'd like to give us a call. That number is 334-625-2423. That's 334-625-2423.
And if all else fails, if you didn't get any of that, just reach out to Hearts and Hills and we'll get you connected to him at all costs. Thank you again. Thank you again for tuning in. We'll be back here, same place, same time. Definitely a different way. Know that it only gets better from here every week, every day, every moment that God gives you is an opportunity for you to grow into your next. So keep growing, keep believing, and keep going. Growing, believing, and going. And remember, whatever you do, do it with all your heart. And if you can't put your heart in it, put your heels on it and walk away. Love you, Hearts and Hills. Good night.